It's official. Mark Zuckerberg has surrendered to Elon Musk and what's been going on at X. He's also surrendered to the American people who voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, thus ending the censorship and political correctness, the DEI crap. But there was something hidden in his message he delivered to you that most people are overlooking, not here. I'll tell you why it's probably the most significant part of today's groundbreaking statement from the chairman and founder of Meta. That's coming up in just a moment. Plus, Donald Trump Jr. wheels down in Greenland. And there was a statement today from the Prime Minister of Denmark that actually is moving the storyline along that might actually help Greenland become potentially a protectorate of the United States of America. And absolute fireworks on CNN over yesterday's coverage of January 6th and looking back 4 years ago, their anger over the American people not doing what they told them to do and defeating Donald Trump. And of course, Scott Jennings was right there, tip of the spear, to push back on all of it. We're so excited. We've got a loaded show for you, and we're brought to you by Birch Gold. I'm Larry O'Connor. You can call me Larry. Thank you for tuning in today to our live stream. We're so happy to have you. Thanks for letting us be a part of your midday here, and give us a thumbs up, like there, just so we can draw more people to the live stream, to the live chat, so you guys can all participate and debate and discuss and have fun wondering why I'm not wearing my glasses anymore. And we welcome everybody watching this presentation after the fact. Join us live. It's pretty much noon every day here, Eastern time. So we're talking about increased tariffs right now on our trade partners, tax cuts, regulation changes. I want you to learn why gold is a viable diversification tactic right now more than ever. Birch Gold, the only company I endorse, they're releasing, only gold company I endorse. Let me just be clear on that. They're releasing their ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era, and they've got a foreword written by the aforementioned Donald Trump Jr. To get your free copy, along with Birch Gold's free information kit on gold, just text my name, Larry, to 989898. The facts are the national debt continues to increase. Our interest payments on the national debt continue to increase. Gold is still your hedge against a weakened dollar, and Birch Gold is still the company I recommend to help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into a tax-sheltered IRA in gold. And that's not a penny out of your pocket to get that done. Text Larry to 989898. Get your free copy of the ultimate guide for gold in the Trump era. No obligation, only information. I love Birch Gold because they've got an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers. You can trust Birch Gold too. Text my name, Larry, 989898. Do it today. Well, today, the social media world, especially content creators, as well as anyone who utilizes Facebook to trade information, links, their opinion, the stuff you're supposed to use social media for, we were all stunned by an announcement from founder and CEO of Meta, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. Let's take a quick look at this video. I'm going to interrupt it only a couple of times to give you some commentary on what I think is really, really important and sort of the underlying message here. First, look at the outfit. Who's styling him? There's something different here, right? Doesn't he look like he's about to give you some, insights into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency? He's dressed like he's about to host one of those bro podcasts that Barron Trump recommended his dad go on. It's like he wants to be in the club now. It's obvious what's going on here. And the way he delivered this message about the new anti-censorship regime over at Facebook, the words he used meant to communicate directly to Americans who supported Donald Trump and identify themselves as MAGA conservatives. I'll point it out as it happens. Let's listen.
That's something important today, because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech. So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms.
All right, couple things there, and we'll get back to it because there's a lot loaded into this statement. I cannot overemphasize how earth-shattering this is right now, based on where we've been with Meta, where we've been with Facebook. You ask any content creator out there, right of center, and they'll tell you that about a couple of years ago, things just absolutely crashed across the board with Facebook. And it was because of these systems that they put in place to silence our voices. Now, he's blaming the systems for making mistakes, but at least he's acknowledging that that mistakes were made. Now, I believe they were deliberate mistakes. And if the systems didn't work right and ended up censoring voices because they were guilty of wrongthink for being conservative, well, one has to look at who created those systems to empower them to make those mistakes. He sort of reveals it a little later on, and that's what I think is really the hidden secret, sort of overlooked part of this statement that I'm going to point out to you coming up in just a few minutes. But also understand what he just said, that they've got to go back to their roots, getting away from censorship and onto free speech. That's an admission that they have gone astray, that they've been out in the wilderness and abandoned free speech. He also said that this last election sent a message that that's what the American people expect Facebook to do. Think about that for a second. Yes, that's huge in terms of a continued ripple effect from the Donald Trump victory this last November. But he's also acknowledging that how free speech and the First Amendment is enforced and respected in this country on social media platforms like Facebook are reliant on who won the last election. Well, that's absolute and total bullshit. And you know it. The whole point of our Constitution and the First Amendment and our God-given right to free speech protected by the First Amendment. Remember, the Constitution doesn't give us the right to free speech. We were born with free speech. The Constitution is to protect us from the government intruding on our free speech. Well, it's supposed to transcend who happens to be sitting in the White House. These are our rights. You can't but decide by executive action or by new policy from the executive branch of government. Even by law, you can't infringe on our constitutional rights. The only way you can infringe on our constitutional rights is if you amend the Constitution. And here's Mark Zuckerberg saying, well, the last election tells us that there's a different tide in this country, and so we're going back to our roots with free speech. No, dude. We're supposed to embrace free speech, enforce free speech, acknowledge free speech, and be free of any intrusion on our free speech, regardless of the election. Thank you for acknowledging that you were violating our rights as a corporation, at least. Obviously, the First Amendment is there to protect us from the government infringing on our rights, but he's acknowledging that he infringed on those rights based on the presidential elections past, and now he's sending us back to freedom because of the last election. That's an incredible acknowledgement, whether he knows he just admitted it or not. All right, back to our friend here with the what do the kids like to call that? Is that a Jew fro? Is that technically a, and I mean that with a great affection. I have a couple of friends who are Jewish that have hair like that. Is that a Jew fro, or is that just a perm that he got gussied up with for, I don't know. Let's get back to Mark Zuckerberg.
More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US.
All right. So a couple things there that I just want to make sure you didn't overlook. He set up the fact-checking regime in Facebook in response to the media going nuts about misinformation. So he didn't like the press he was getting. Oh my gosh, they're saying on CNN that there was misinformation on Facebook. So let's respond to that. Not respond to the consumer, not respond to his customer, not respond to the American people, respond to Rachel Maddow and George Stephanopoulos by creating this fact-checking regime. He also just admitted that the fact-checking regime at Facebook was too politically biased. Just so you know, the fact-checking regime at Facebook partnered with mainstream media outlets. USA Today, I believe, participated as one of the partners. So did this website called The Dispatch. You know, The Dispatch, they pretend to be sort of a conservative website with Jonah Goldberg, Steve Hayes. I think they're the founders. David French used to write over there. They pretend that they're, the real conservatives, right of center. They were fact checkers for Facebook. And Mark Zuckerberg, their pal, their partner, just threw him under the bus by acknowledging that they were too biased. I love it. Of course, fact checkers are biased. And thank you, Mark Zuckerberg, for acknowledging the truth, the obvious truth. And for all of you watching right now, I'm glad that you don't partake in news and information from websites like The Dispatch and USA Today. Thank you for getting your content right here at Town Hall, at townhall.com, redstate.com, pjmedia.com, hotair.com, and Twitchy and Bearing Arms. We'll never pretend to be fact checkers and partner with Facebook because we know that fact checkers are biased. They're politically biased. So thank you, Zuckerberg. All right, back to the statement.
So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system. Second, we're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms.
All of us have been saying that we were being censored because we happen to express our opinion about people coming into the country illegally and committing crimes and they should be deported. Boom, you violated our standards. I believe that there's only two genders, a boy and a girl, male and female. Boom, you're censored because you violated our standards. Biologically, scientifically, there are only people with XX chromosomes and XY chromosomes. And no matter what drugs you take and what surgery you perform, you're never going to change that scientific biological reality. Boom, your post was deleted because you violated our standards. He's now admitted it. I'm sorry if I'm too excited about this, but you got to understand how big this is. If they follow through with what he's saying right now, it's really going to change the way we talk to each other. We're going to get back to the good old days, when we could actually express our opinions on social media. Facebook's going to allow us to do that again. Gosh, thanks, Mark.
Third, we're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action.
All right, now that's also huge. I don't know how many of you tried to post something and it got stopped before it could even get published on Facebook because it utilized certain words, or maybe it was a link to a website that they had already set up with their AI bots to prohibit happening. And it was like, what? This isn't terrorist information. I'm not sharing stuff, to encourage pedophilia or anything. That's what those screens are supposed to be set up for. No, they were set up to screen out automatically without any human being making a judgment call. They were screening out the things that hurt individuals' feelings on politics or what have you. He's doing away with all of that, he claims, and now they'll only look at a post if somebody actually proactively complains about it. Now, that's still rife with bias, and it opens themselves up to utilizing their own left-wing judgments on stuff. But that brings us to, again, what I believe is the hidden, most important, biggest part of this whole message that everybody's overlooking. Nobody gets it. You're about to, because you're watching me right now. Watch.
The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down. Fourth, we're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed, so we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive.
All right, that's not the biggest thing. That's big, but that's not this hidden thing that everyone's overlooking. I'm going to point it out. It's still coming. But let me just tell you, if you're a fan of content like this show right now and you're watching us on Facebook, if you like the Ben Shapiro podcast or any of the Daily Wire podcasts, if you like Dan Bongino, if you like Benny Johnson, if you like all of my colleagues, Charlie Kirk and my colleagues who do what we do here with right of center content direct to you, streaming the way that we're doing right now, what he just said is a game changer. Because for the last several years, behind the scenes, looking at our analytics, we have been suppressed. We have been taken out of their feeds, out of the news feeds, out of Threads, out of the algorithm or whatever other description you want to take it. We all looked at our numbers. We'll all tell you the same thing. In fact, our buddy Benny Johnson, I think, just posted this last night on his X account. He posted a screenshot of his analytics where all of his numbers just crashed. We've all been experiencing this. We don't even look at Facebook anymore for any kind of significant revenue or traffic anymore. That's not where there's been any business. And he just admitted why. Because they were saying, oh, people were tired of politics. They didn't want to hear about politics. Well, that's bullshit. Of course, people will care about politics. People, all the other platforms, political content is going through the roof, right? Why was Facebook standing alone? They disincentivize content creators like yours truly to participate in the content that we make on Facebook. There was a while there where we weren't even posting the show on Facebook or any of our videos on Facebook. It wasn't worth the effort. And now we know why. Because they specifically deliberately went out of their way to take it out of their streams, take it out of the threads. He's just now admitted, okay, we're going to get back to allowing civic content, as he puts it, political discourse. Now, whether that changes the kind of revenue and response that we get out of it, I don't know. I mean, listen, we're on Facebook. You're watching us on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. Give us some comments. Give us a hello down there in Facebook so we can see that you're watching us. We just want to make sure we get our message out. But if we can make revenue in doing it on this show, if our partners and friends, people that you haven't even heard of yet who are just starting a show, if they can add Facebook as a platform where they can expand their voice and actually get some income, that's a good thing. More voices, not fewer voices. That's the secret to an open democracy, an open constitutional republic, an open society, is that everybody's voice has the ability to be heard by millions of people. And Facebook's been silencing it, silencing many voices like ours. So we're thrilled to hear that as well. All right, here we go. Here comes the big nugget that people just like heard and said, oh, well, that's interesting. But they don't realize what not only is he admitting, but the game changer that this is going to make.
Fifth, we're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams.
There it is. That's it. Did you, if you've seen this statement, you may have just like glossed, oh, that's great. They're moving to Texas because they want tax cuts because there's no income tax, state income tax in Texas. Oh, that's great. No, that right there may be the biggest part of this entire statement for a couple of reasons. First, he's admitting that all of these rules and violations and censorship and safety measures that they've put in place at Facebook based on speech codes, it's all been completely influenced by the region, by the Silicon Valley, by the Bay Area in liberal, left-wing, mind-numbed California, San Francisco, California. You see, the people who work there at their cubicles, they're all getting hired from that area. They went to school at Berkeley, they went to school at Stanford. They're all there in the Bay Area of California. So they're all liberal Democrats. The state is dominated by liberal Democrats. He's admitting that the people who were put in place, not the systems, not the AI, not the algorithms, not the coding, the people who were responsible for creating and enforcing these policies were a big part of the problem, because they didn't look at the world, they didn't look at the country and issues and policies in this country from the perspective that the vast majority of Americans are looking at it from. They had a cultural regional bias, and now he's abandoning the Californians and he's going to Texas. I mean, think about it for a minute. You're putting together this whole speech code enforcement, and it's going to be enforced by people who live in San Francisco and the Bay Area of California, or it's going to be enforced by people who live in redneck Texas. Do you think maybe the people in Texas are going to look at things a little different than the people in California? Of course they are. Not only is he admitting that it was all the left-wing lunatics in California that were really causing the problems, but he's now changing the entire region to Texas because he acknowledges that huge, huge numbers of people in America have been discriminated against, have been overlooked, have been silenced, have been ignored by his big media company, solely because of the region, because of the people. People are policy. Personnel make the difference. And now, instead of liberal San Francisco Democrats who love Kamala Harris and think Trump is icky, he's going to red state Texas. I think that's gigantic. I think it's huge. Not only is it a huge admission of what was wrong up until now, but that single-handedly, because of the people that will now be hired, the people who will be working in those cubicles, the people who will be in management making decisions, making those judgment calls, whether that post can stay up or not, whether the policy is, okay, these things we're going to be concerned about, these things we're going to let people talk about because that's what people in America talk about, whether it's at the water cooler or at the sideline of their kid's soccer game or on the playground or wherever, or on social media or on Facebook. This is what Americans like to talk about, so just let them talk. We don't need to get in the way of it. Those decisions will now be made by people who live in Texas. That's amazing. It really is amazing. Now, I know a lot of you are saying, don't trust Zuckerberg. This is all BS. He's only doing it because he wants to be, part of the game, and he's doing this for money and all that. Okay, we'll address that in a second. Here's the end of the statement.
Finally, we're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it. It'll take time to get this right, and these are complex systems. They're never going to be perfect. There's also a lot of illegal stuff that we still need to work very hard to remove. But the bottom line is that after years of having our content moderation work focus primarily on removing content, it is time to focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our systems, and getting back to our roots about giving people voice. I'm looking forward to this next chapter. Stay good out there, and more to come soon.
All right. So listen, key element there, of course, is he's talking about how he wants to work with President Trump. None of this would have happened if Kamala Harris had won the election. So again, the ripple effect continues, not just Trudeau in Canada finally changing, but now we got Mark Zuckerberg, social media, Facebook. You got to love it. Okay. So let's address the elephant in the room, because you're right. You're right. When you say don't trust this guy, he's a snake. You can't trust him. He was only looking for the money. He's only sort of licking his finger and feeling which way the wind is blowing. He's jealous of Elon Musk. He wants a seat at the table. You're right. You're right. You're right. You're 100% right. I don't care. I don't care what his motives are. I don't need him to agree with me. I don't need him to be an angel. I don't need him to be pure. I don't need him to have the best motives in the world. I don't care. There's no way I will ever know what is in Mark Zuckerberg's heart if he has one. I still am somewhat intrigued by the idea that he is an alien droid. It doesn't matter to me. What matters is what he does. His actions matter to me. I don't judge people by their intentions because I'll never know what people's intentions really are. I only know what they do. I don't care if he's doing this for profit motive. I don't care if he's doing this out of jealousy of Elon Musk. I don't care if he's doing this because he likes to be invited to Mar-a-Lago. I don't care. I care about the results. And if all of those petty reasons are part of why he's deciding to re-embrace free speech, good. Good. Let me tell you a story. Remember GE? Jack Welch used to be the longtime CEO of GE, and he was considered a right-wing conservative Republican. He built GE into one of the biggest corporations on the planet, and everyone assumed that he was a conservative Republican. And then Barack Obama wins the presidency, and suddenly GE is embracing all this green climate change agenda crap. GE used to own NBC. Do you remember when NBC altered their entire primetime lineup for a week and all of the storylines had something to do with the environment and climate change and greenhouse gases? Do you remember any of this? It was around 2009, I want to say, or 2010. And it's like, what's happened to GE? Why is GE gone all left wing? We didn't say woke back then. Why is GE doing all of this stuff? Well, there were a couple of reasons. The first is Barack Obama won the election, and major corporations decide that they're going to do stupid crap like that to embrace where the power is. They were trying to ingratiate themselves to the new Obama administration, number one. Number two, CEOs look for ways to make money no matter who's sitting in the White House, and their policies are going to change depending on who won that election. So when GE is looking at the tide of the nation and Obama wins on all this climate change BS, what do? Well, we're going to change all of our shows on NBC to focus on that issue. Aren't you happy, Barack Obama and Democrats? Oh, good. Oh, by the way, this whole move to get rid of incandescent light bulbs because incandescent light bulbs draw too much energy. Well, that was a big part of our business model over here at GE. But you know what? We're going to embrace change. We're with you. We think you should outlaw incandescent light bulbs. We are 100% agree with you. Oh, by the way, we've come out with this new fluorescent light bulb that costs 10 times more than an incandescent light bulb. Screw that, 20 times more. Considering you're now making those old light bulbs that we used to sell for 89 cents each illegal, we embrace that. Now everyone will have to buy this $10 light bulb. Otherwise, they're going to light bulb jail. We love you, Barack Obama. We're liberal Democrats too. I have no idea what the politics of the CEO of GE is. I know that GE is going to set up policies that are going to embrace Obama or Bush or Trump. It doesn't matter. That's how it should be. Not these idiotic woke policies that go against the tide of the country. The tide of the country right now is for more freedom, for more Trump, for rejecting wokeism, rejecting all of the speech police and everything. And as Zuckerberg is embracing those things too, because it's better for his profit margin, because that's where America is, great. That's the way it works. Good. Meanwhile, this morning, as all of this was being announced, this guy appeared on Fox and Friends. Who is that guy? Well, remember how a little earlier I said personnel is more important than policy? Personnel is policy. Well, this is one of Meta, Facebook's newest hires. His name is Joel Kaplan. Joel Kaplan is a former senior advisor to George W. Bush. Joel Kaplan is a Republican. He replaces, as a senior executive at Meta Facebook, he replaces Nick Clegg. Who's Nick Clegg? Nick Clegg was the former deputy prime minister of Britain and a liberal. Clegg and the liberals are out. Kaplan and the Republicans are in. It's the new Facebook, everybody.
But there's also no question that there has been a change over the last 4 years. We saw a lot of societal and political pressure all in the direction of more content moderation, more censorship. And we've got a real opportunity now. We've got a new administration and a new president coming in who are big defenders of free expression. And that makes a difference. One of the things we've experienced is that when you have a U.S. president and administration that's pushing for censorship, it just makes it open season for other governments around the world that don't even have the protections of the First Amendment to really put pressure on U.S. companies. We're going to work with President Trump to push back on that kind of thing around the world.
So, Joel, why now? I know you said it's a change, but did you feel restricted over the last 4 years? And this is the first time it's in your business interest to express this quest for freedom?
Well, there's no question that there's an opportunity here with a new president taking office, as I said, who really believes in free expression. And that's just going to give us the space to get back to those values that Mark has talked about for a long. Mark gave a big speech 6 years ago at Georgetown about.
Yeah, I'm going to stop you there, Joel, because I don't know if you caught that, but that was Joel Kaplan answering a question without really answering the question. The question was there something stopping you in embracing free speech and allowing more voices without censorship on your platform over the last 4 years? And his answer was, well, let me just say, with this new president who really, really is a big supporter of free speech, this gives us an opportunity to this. In other words, yes. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democrat regime that's been in charge of the executive branch of government for the last 4 years is anti-free speech. And he basically just said it. One other new hire, well, not really a hire, sort of a hire, new appointment at Meta, the parent company of Facebook. This will possibly make a difference too. Dana White, the CEO and chairman of UFC, he says, I love social media, excited to be a small part of the future of AI and emerging technologies. That's right. Dana White is now going to be in the boardroom, sitting right next to Mark Zuckerberg, giving his advice and his opinion on things like this. Big Trump supporter. Zuckerberg's statement, I'm excited to kick off the year with some news we've been working on for a while. Dana White, John Elkin, and Charlie Songhurst are joining Meta's board of directors. Massive opportunities ahead with AI, wearables, and the future of social media, and our board will help us achieve our vision. Dana is the president and CEO of UFC. He's built it into one of the most valuable, fastest growing, and most popular sports enterprises in the world. I've admired him as an entrepreneur and his ability to build such a beloved brand. There you go. One of the most outspoken supporters of Donald Trump and MAGA during this last election. He even spoke at the Republican National Convention. Dana White now on the board of Meta. Yeah, things are changing. By the way, I also think Mark Zuckerberg wants him there because he's a bit of a jiu-jitsu nerd. And I think by having Dana White in the board is going to make him feel cooler. Again, don't care. Listen, proof is in the pudding. We're going to be watching. We'll let you know if things start to change for us. But either way, the fact that Zuckerberg had to do that hostage video at all and concede that they have been silencing your voices is a huge step in the right direction. Now, Mark Zuckerberg, now Facebook, put up or seriously shut up. Over on CNN yesterday, the coverage of the outgoing Biden administration, the incoming Trump administration, and of course, the January 6th certification of the Electoral College, it created a bit of a perfect storm that required the one and only Scott Jennings to step in and speak truth to power. We have some beautiful nuggets of him pushing back on Van Jones and Adam Kinzinger. And finally, there's a clip of the CNN host, I think finally having a little bit too much Scott Jennings in her life. And she let the mask slip a little bit about what the anchors really think about Scott. We'll get to that in a minute. But first, here he is with Kinzinger.
Harris business, I think before we canonize St. Kamala here on the high holy day of January 6th. Let's remember the Electoral Count Reform Act of 2022 makes it perfectly clear that the vice president has nothing but purely ministerial duties on this day. She didn't actually certify the results of the election. That's done by the voters. And the people
it was clear as day 4 years ago as well.
Right.
But because of the
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, nobody's trying to canonize her. The same thing was true.
Oh, they're not. I mean, she put out a video trying to canonize herself.
She was actually just saying it's unremarkable. That's true.
That's the opposite of canonizing.
I want to actually congratulate the Democrats today. This is the first election since 1980. This is the first election since 1988 that a Republican won, and Democrats did not try to overturn the results on the floor of the Congress. So congratulations, Democrats.
I'm only interrupting you because we've heard this before.
We've played this. Well, you've heard the truth before, but I thought it was worth repeating.
Yeah, well, we've heard all that before. Oh, yeah, well, no one on CNN is saying it except for Jennings. In fact, Adam Kinzinger, didn't he used to be a Republican? You'd think that he would embrace that narrative too. That's right. Everybody getting so excited. See, this is how January 6th is supposed to happen. The vice president was there performing her ceremonial duty and gaveling things in, and that's it. Well, Jennings reminds everybody, yeah, that's because in 22, just 2 years ago, they passed a law that reduced the vice president's role to merely a ceremonial position. And Democrats, we're not election deniers. See, we didn't object. It's the first time you didn't object since 89. It's the first time you haven't objected to a Republican winning the Electoral College since parachute pants were in style. MC Hammer was playing on people's Walkmans as they were walking around outside the Capitol building the last time you guys were okay with the Electoral College results. So just shut up. Thank you, Scott Jennings, for pointing it out. He should have made the parachute pants reference. All right, a little bit more from CNN yesterday.
Yeah, I think it'll be remembered, but I don't think it's going to be remembered singularly. I think it's going to be remembered in the context of the last 8 years, 4 years of Trump, 4 years of Biden. I mean, the fact is it happened. It was a terrible day. Political violence should never be condoned. And then we lived through 4 years of Biden's presidency, and the American people went scrambling back to Donald Trump. They chose to analyze two presidencies, which included one day and a whole bunch of other policy decisions, and they went back to Trump.
All right, I'm going to let this finish. There's about another minute and a half here, but I just want to point out, you've got to, Adam Kinzinger, this is his job now. He's a CNN analyst. So sad. Adam Kinzinger led the charge. He killed his own political futures by sitting on that January 6th committee, not because the Republican leader, Kevin McCarthy, wanted him on that committee. He was handpicked by Nancy Pelosi. He is a Nancy Pelosi approved kind of Republican. He's the kind of Republican that Nancy Pelosi goes out of her way to bring into the room and into the conversation about things. That should tell you what kind of Republican he is, right? His entire career now will be defined by his participation in the kangaroo committee that was known as the January 6th investigation. And here's Scott Jennings, right? This is what's so beautiful, is that they do the split screen. So Kinzinger's face basically just melts like he's at a funeral or something, or like he was one of the guys looking at the contents of the Ark of the Covenant in Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it's all disintegrating before his eyes. Because Scott Jennings is basically telling the truth here, saying, yeah, the American people heard what you had to say. It's how could we avoid what you had to say about January 6th? It's all we had for months, for a couple of years. All you had to talk about was January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. And when they finally had a chance to say something back to you, they said, go screw yourself. We want Trump. And Kinzinger has to listen to this. So watch his face as this entire thing unfolds. It's beautiful.
Other thing about this day and about this election that I think is noteworthy and actually positive is this. It's not been since 1988 that Democrats have not challenged a Republican win on the floor of the House when trying to count the votes. I've never had an election in my adult professional career in which both sides basically accepted it without too much grumbling. Obviously, 00 and 04, Democrats didn't accept Bush. There were Republicans who didn't accept Obama. We know Democrats still think Russia stole the election in 2016. We know what happened in 2020. This time around, it seems to me that most people have basically accepted the results of the election. Also, the Electoral Reform Count Act passed in 2022, clarifying that the vice president only has ministerial duty. So that's going to go off without a hitch today. It feels like maybe we've gotten off the slippery slope of one side or the other not accepting the outcome of an election. So in its totality over the last quarter century, I tend to think that's a good thing.
I think sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, look, I get it, and I agree that in the long run, I think that the days of, January 6th fights are probably going to be over. We did a great thing with the Electoral Count Act reform, but we have to be very careful. We can't put Democrats, and I was against them doing it when they did it, obviously, against Democrats opposing the election. Yeah. We can't put that on the same level what happened on January 6th. It's
yeah, we can't do that because then my entire legacy will be disintegrated. Okay, Adam. Meanwhile, a little bit more here. This is Van Jones again. And this conversation, by the way, has to do with, it goes beyond January 6th, and it really has to do with what we still need to know about Democrats covering up Joe Biden's decline. And I love that Jennings continues to push on this issue.
Next time.
Of course, to admit it now would be to effectively be admitting one of the biggest cover-ups in modern American political history. Democrat politicians lied. Democrat pundits lied. A lot of people who cover the White House looked the other way or believed absolute crap they were being fed by the White House press secretary.
I'm not disagreeing.
Cheap fakes.
Yeah.
So you think about the pantheon of people who were engaged in the lying, believing the lying, or the cover-up itself. To admit it now would be to say, you know what, America, we did try to pull the wool over your eyes and you weren't buying it. I mean, I guess I understand why keeping up the charade now to some degree, because to admit it now would be to admit this massive, huge cover-up.
And it would also be to, kick a guy when he's down. I think we live in the real world. And this is politics. He's not going to throw Joe Biden all the way under the bus at this stage.
Yeah, I think if that debate hadn't happened, Joe Biden would have probably still been at the top of the ticket in November. But that debate was telling. And I think anybody who watched it, we all were shocked. We were all also very sad and hurt. It was hard to watch someone who I've worked for
Me too.
Be in that condition. I'll also say I saw the president a month ago and he's like, where you been all day? It's like, so.
Yeah, good days and bad days.
Yeah, right. Next time.
I missed that last line there from Van Jones, but it is amazing to me to hear them still in some sort of a cognitive dissonance over what they all saw, what we all saw, what we were told by those same people sitting at that table were cheap fakes and lies about Joe Biden. And Scott Jennings says, this was a cover-up. It was a cover-up. At best, you willfully ignored this. At worst, it was the greatest political cover-up of our lifetimes. All right, real fast. By the end of the night, wait, was this end of the night or was this in the morning? Actually, now that I'm looking at it, this was in the morning. All right, well, it's one point. What's her name? Kate Bolden. Is that her name? How do you pronounce her name?
Are you talking about the former the former White House comms director?
She's an anchor now at CNN. Well, you'll see who she is. She was obviously getting sick and tired of Scott Jennings, and she let the mask slip a little bit. Listen to her at the end here when she lashes out. She just wants Scott Jennings to shut up, which, it's interesting. You're an anchor, a host of a CNN show, and CNN is a paid analyst. His job is to give his opinion, but because he's truthful, he's fact-based, and you can't deny the obvious truths that he lays out there, the best thing you're reduced to is telling him to shut up.
In a political sense, is it how we got here is interesting, and you can see the evolution. You can play all the sound bites from the days after when you heard Republicans blaming Donald Trump, some being short of saying he should be impeached, saying he should be held accountable. And 4 years later, we are here. It is a stunning political comeback attributed to how Trump played it afterward, how Democrats played it afterward, or something else?
Well, I think it's some mixture of everything. But to me, the big message is that in the United States, the people decide. And because of the disastrous 4 years that came after Donald Trump, the people decided to return Donald Trump to power. And that's fundamentally what happened. They looked at what happened on January the 6th. They looked at all the things Democrats claimed about Donald Trump. And they also analyzed every single decision that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris made. And they delivered Donald Trump a convincing victory 4 years later.
It is tough, though, Scott, because when you say the people decide, that's what people tried to make sure didn't happen on January 6th, was allowing the people to decide.
The machinery turned. It was a terrible.
The lack of acknowledgement of how bad it was in the aftermath.
I mean, I think a great many people have acknowledged it, but also what happened that day. The machinery turned. Mm-hmm. Joe Biden became the president. He had one of the worst terms of any U.S. president, and then the people scrambled back to Donald Trump. That is the history of what happened.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at today, Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. If you look at the fact that something like net migration at the border is lower than it.
I look at Jennings' face. He can barely even contain himself. Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies ever. Really, you would think if the economy was that great, the American people would have voted for 4 more years. I'm sorry, has the economy improved just in the last 6 weeks since Election Day? Is it, what did I miss exactly? Look at his face. The discipline that he must have to embody to not just laugh at this guy in his face by saying that. All right, they go back and forth for a while. I just want to skip ahead to the very end here, where they're going back and forth, and Jennings just keeps, laying out the facts for them. And then finally, Kate Baldwin, right? Isn't it Baldwin? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. She finally has had enough of Scott Jennings, being right.
What we're saying, though, is that prices are going down. What I am saying is murder rates. They actually are going down.
Inflation is still
going down.
It is decreasing in rate, which is the entire goal.
But are prices going down or not? Just to be clear, no, they're not.
They are down from their sky high rates.
Yeah, so again, I just want to jump in here. So he says prices are going down. No, they're not. Prices are still going up. They're just not going up as fast. The inflation rate is less, but inflation is inflation. Okay. So as the inflation used to be 9%, now it's 3%. Okay, so instead of prices going up 9%, they're going up 3%, but that's still 12% higher than before the inflation at all. So he says prices are going down. He's saying, no, they're not. And she's lying, basically. She says, well, sure they are. Prices are going down because inflation is lower, right? And so he just, look at Jennings' mouth. I love it. So that's what they're about to engage in here. And Jennings is right. And she can't handle it, so...
No. Let's move on. Next up for...
We were just arguing over combat zones. I don't know where we are this morning.
You can argue.
You guys are trying to paint a picture of a country that doesn't exist.
I'm not painting anything. I'm painting stop talking. That's what I'm painting. Scott.
Zip it, stop talking is the only way she can end the segment. That's a gorgeous thing, a beautiful thing. Even on a day like yesterday, CNN can't help but continue to try to lie to boost up the Biden-Harris presidency. I don't know why. It's over. Y'all lost, but thank God we've got Jennings there at the table to continue to fact check them in real time. It was a dark day on CNN yesterday as they had to face the reality that the American people just wouldn't buy everything that they've been selling for the last 4 years about January 6th, 2021. It was a remarkable thing. It was like 24-hour programming. All they wanted to do was keep replaying 4 years ago, lament what happened, and even more so, lament that the American people didn't really care. Not nearly as much as Jake Tapper and the whole team there at CNN. Take a look at a little bit of this coverage.
Brad, is it time for Donald Trump to apologize for what took place 4 years ago?
I wouldn't expect Donald Trump would apologize. I think nor do I expect Democrats to apologize for trying to undo his presidency by all legal and extra legal means after that.
Come on, Brad. Come on.
No, Jim, look at our own polling. Look at CNN's own exit polling. Voters who said they voted on democracy were evenly split between Democrats and Republicans. January 6th was a dark day in the history of our country. Donald Trump bears a lot of responsibility for that. It's something that should stay in his legacy forever. However, voters, they punished him for it. That's why he was behind Ron DeSantis by 20 points until Alvin Bragg indicted him. And once voters decided that Democrats were determined to prevent Donald Trump from being elected by any extra legal means, they decided maybe this wasn't as clear.
I mean, shouldn't your party have just rejected him, just flat out rejected him, from Kevin McCarthy to Mitch McConnell to the whole lot of them? How could your party let him be the nominee again? Watch
what Kevin McCarthy and Mitch McConnell said in the aftermath of that. They absolutely did condemn him. Mitch McConnell was still condemning him months afterward on the floor. Yeah. Nancy Pelosi decided to use January 6th for partisan gain, though. She appointed, she refused to let Kevin McCarthy appoint Republicans to through the committee. She
That's
didn't
not
let
true
Republicans hire staff to the January 6th Oversight Committee. They didn't allow
The
cross-examination.
January
of
6th
witnesses.
committee had the Republican of all Republicans, Liz Cheney, on
Liz
it.
Cheney was
So
not. She was not appointed
booted
by
out
her
of your party.
conference.
I mean,
she wasn't appointed by her conference like
Dick
every
Cheney's
other
daughter.
committee. She wasn't appointed by the Republican conference.
Good Republican.
All right. I love that part. By the way, a couple of things to unpack there. His name is Brad Todd, by the way, and you did a very good job. I'm always torn. It's like, why do Republicans go on these shows, especially with Jim Acosta? But then I'm happy that a Republican like Brad Todd gets on there. Don't you love Jim Acosta's messaging there? He said, this is typical perspective of a Democrat. How did your party allow Donald Trump to become the nominee? And of course, the appropriate answer is, well, the people are our party. The voters wanted him. Unlike Democrats, we don't have three powerful, rich individuals get into a room and decide who the next nominee is going to be. There was a full field of candidates, including Ron DeSantis, including Vivek Ramaswamy, including Nikki Haley, and they voted for Donald Trump. That's how the party let him be the nominee. But that tells you everything about how liberals and Democrats take a look at these things. And then finally, well, she's the Republican of all Republicans. She's Liz Cheney. She's Dick Cheney's daughter. No, the bottom line is the leader of the Republicans in the House, Kevin McCarthy, didn't want her on that panel. It was Nancy Pelosi who selected her. And if we're going to play that game, Jim Acosta, then what about Robert F. Kennedy Jr.? He's the Democrat of Democrats. He's Bobby Kennedy's son, right? Would you describe him as the Democrat of all Democrats, the perfect quintessential Democrat, Jim? Of course you wouldn't, because you're an absolute hack. But the lamenting continued, all about January 6th, and the lies continued. Take a listen to this. We spent a lot of time telling you how horrible Jake Tapper is, but this may be one of the worst.
Looking at images from the floor of the House of Representatives, members of the House and Senate are gathering in what is there, and there is the Speaker Mike Johnson and Vice President Kamala Harris. It's obviously a bipartisan or even nonpartisan event where the leaders of this country come together to count the electoral votes. There's Ted Cruz, a senator from Texas, who was one of the main individuals who helped cause what happened 4 years ago by putting forward the falsehood that the vice president could somehow do something to stop the electoral count.
Wow. Ted Cruz, who helped cause what happened 4 years ago. Ted Cruz, one of 100 senators, did what was completely constitutionally empowered for him to do, which was to challenge the way the electoral votes were determined in the state of Pennsylvania, because an unelected Secretary of State and a Supreme Court determined which ballots would be valid and which would not be valid, circumventing the actual law passed by the state legislature in Pennsylvania. And to be clear, the Constitution says that the members of the Electoral College voting body and the electoral votes for any given state shall be determined by the legislature. He was going to make that argument that day. And for Jake Tapper to stand there and say he's one of the people responsible for what happened on January 6th, because you're not allowed to have an opinion that differs from Jake Tapper. He's a disgusting hack. And I see, this is the kind of thing where I hope, he's facing a defamation suit right now. It starts today, this defamation suit. Jake Tapper himself and CNN for lying about a person, allegedly defaming a person who was in Afghanistan rescuing people there because Joe Biden had abandoned them. And he's suing them for $1 billion. And there have been various moments where a settlement has been proposed. And this guy, the plaintiff in the case, said, no, I don't want a settlement. I want a judgment. I want a judgment against you people for lying about me. And this is going to be a beautiful thing to watch. CNN is in big trouble in this defamation suit. Jake Tapper was the reporter, the host of the show that actually allowed that to happen. Okay, a little bit more here as the heartache at CNN continued. Look at this, like all day long, all they did was continue showing clips from 4 years ago. I mean, it's like it was the high point for them. It's like they're celebrating this anniversary of the protest that got dicey and violent on January 6th. They keep repeating the lie. The police officers were murdered that day. Police officers died that day. And David Urban, who is sort of the counterpart, but he's sort of the pacing partner with Scott Jennings over there. David Urban points out the sad reality of who actually did die on January 6th 4 years ago.
What?
Let's
Okay,
just say
David,
that all those people weren't violent protesters.
I'm going to let you make your point, but I want to pull that video back up that we were just showing because I want you to make your point because I think a lot of people share your perspective.
Yeah, those people should go to jail, right?
What we were just showing with the barricades and the officers. Those were not officers just letting them.
No, go to the Supreme Court side.
Yeah, I know the video you're talking about.
No, this is these people should go to jail. The people on the Supreme Court side, however,
they were trespassing.
They were
trespassing.
Okay, listen,
They
there's
still broke the law,
a
David.
difference between trespassing and
But
physical
Trump is also
violence.
but don't you think they should,
some of these
wait, shouldn't they
people.
make an
You should, but
example
some
out
of
of
the
these
people-
people
some of the
though?
people
Like this was
trespass.
wrong. They shouldn't be allowed to trespass.
Everybody should not be treated equally. They were violent criminals, right? They shouldn't be treated equally. There are people, these people who are beating the police should go to jail. There's no excuse for it, right? There's no excuse for it. Some of the people on the other,
do you think then those people should get pardons? Should those people
that
get
beat the police?
pardons?
No, shouldn't
The
be
people that
pardoned. No.
Donald Trump is promising to pardon?
He didn't promise to pardon everybody. He said he's going to promise, he's going to look at it case by case basis. Let's just be factual. Those are the words, right? And to be factual, the only person that died on January 6th, there was one person that died. Ashley Babbitt was the only person who was died.
And she was there because Donald Trump
wait a
lost his life.
No,
wait a minute. If you're
on
arguing
January
because he
6th,
didn't die on the 6th, then he
I'm
passed
just
away
saying,
on the
we're
7th.
talking about who died on January 6th.
That is beyond
Okay?
splitting hairs.
It's not splitting
Come on,
hairs.
come on. You don't
It's
actually.
factual.
You don't
There's one
actually.
person that
Why
died.
else was she there? She wouldn't have been there that day if Donald Trump didn't spread conspiracy theories about an election that he knew was not stolen.
Again,
and he told those
one
people to
person.
go to the Capitol, and so she was there as a result of
One
him
person.
telling her to
One
be there.
person that was
She would
killed
not
on
have
January
died
6th.
if it were for Donald Trump to accept the results
She
of the
would have
election.
died
And
if the
you know
police
that.
officer didn't wrongfully shoot her. I wish January 6th, listen, I wish the January 6th committee would have done a full investigation for the American people to see and hear. Watch this. And again, don't listen to David Urban, American people. Hold on. Don't listen to American people. Go to the video. It's all New York Times put this out. It's all over YouTube.
I ask you,
Watch what happened to Ashley Babbitt.
Looking at this.
There you go. Ashley Babbitt. She's the only person who died on January 6th. And that whole, Officer Sicknick, he died a day later or 2 days later. That had nothing to do with January 6th. Go ahead and search it. Fact check me, whatever social media platform I'm on right now that you're watching me on, because they always put little fact checks underneath. Fact check it. Every police officer who died after January 6th, one person died of a stroke that was completely unrelated. His own doctors said it was unrelated to January 6th. And a couple of officers died from suicide. We don't know. There's no evidence that says it had anything to do with January 6th. Okay. Sorry. Police officers were not killed on January 6th or as a result of January 6th. The one person who died as a result of January 6th is Ashley Babbitt. And I love really great to hear liberals on this panel saying, well, she got shot in the throat because she was there that day. If she hadn't been there, it would have never happened. Okay. Could we go back and look at some of the incidents with law enforcement that caused the Black Lives Matter riots? I mean, I could make the same argument about George Floyd. George Floyd would still be alive today if he hadn't broken the law. Is that really where we are, liberals at CNN? Okay, I just want to know what the rules are. Thanks. So what's going on at CNN? Why did they spend all day focusing on January 6th 4 years ago? Well, I'll tell you why. Because they're very upset. They're very upset that they have zero influence. They have beaten the drum since January, 6th, 2021. They thought that this was going to be the end of Donald Trump, the end of MAGA, the end of the Republican Party, frankly, unless you're a Republican that is approved of by Nancy Pelosi and Jake Tapper, like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. They thought that January 6th was going to change everything and become a political shift in America that would last for decades. They were sure of it, and it's all they wanted to talk about. And the fact of the matter is, when the American people finally had something to say about it, they told CNN to go get stuffed. They said, we know exactly what happened on January 6th. We saw it with our own eyes. We don't need you to tell us what happened. And hyperbolically say that it was worse than September 11th and worse than Pearl Harbor and worse than the Civil War. We know what it was. It wasn't good, but it wasn't all of those things. And the American people have reached their conclusion about January 6th. And to determine exactly what the American people think about January 6th and how it's at odds with all of the experts and much more intellectual, sanctimonious, smarter people than you at CNN, let's turn to CNN. Because on this very same day yesterday, they actually explored the changing public sentiment over January 6th, as the American people actually saw the facts, not the propaganda from CNN, not the propaganda from the January 6th committee, no, the actual facts. We have reached our conclusions.
Hello to you.
Hello, shalom. So President Biden has an op-ed out this morning, basically saying that he hopes people don't memory hole what happened on January 6th 4 years ago, but is that an uphill battle? You know who's here? You saw him. Senior data reporter Harry Enton.
Hello.
Nice to see you,
Nice
sir.
to see you.
Congratulations on the Bills.
Doing something.
Doing the one thing they shouldn't do, which was lose yesterday. Anyway, views on Donald Trump and his responsibility for January 6th have changed, including how people feel he should be perceived politically. Yes?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think if you go back, 4 years ago, right, Trump's role on January 6, 2021 should make him ineligible to be president. The clear majority of voters said yes, 56%, and that was including removal from office. But of course, Donald Trump won the presidency, and part of the reason why was because views on Trump completely shifted, including Trump's role on January 6, 2021 should make him ineligible for the presidency. By 2023, 2024, it was just 47%. So we saw this drop of about 9 points, and that, of course, is all the difference in the world, going from a majority to short of a majority. And of course, Donald Trump won the vast majority of the other 53% who did not believe that his role on January 6th would make him ineligible for the presidency.
Still a big number, but not enough.
Correct.
Right.
This 9-point shift was tremendous.
All right, let's talk about the why behind it, Harry.
Yeah, why? All right, so part of the reason why is, was Trump greatly responsible for the attack on the Capitol? You go back to January 2021, it was 48%. By the time of December of 2023, look at that. Again, a clear shift down to 37%. This is an 11-point drop, very much mirroring that drop that we saw that the folks said that, of course, would make him ineligible for the presidency. So that is part of the reason why, right?
All right. And there's more to this, but you see what's happened here, right? And it's like, well, why? Why would the American people think that immediately after the events and then change their mind? Okay, for two reasons. First of all of the propaganda and everything we heard about January 6th, we didn't have an alternate story. Nobody was coming out and saying, well, there's more to this story than meets the eye. Here's what really happened. Here's this, here's that, here's that. So the immediate reaction, of course, was, oh, yeah, Trump. But secondarily, and more importantly, the American people hate being lied to. It's funny, I've had an ongoing disagreement with my buddy Andrew Klavan about this. I keep saying it. We, the American people, we can tell when we're being lied to, and we hate being lied to. Now, Andrew Klavan is much older than I am, as you know, and he's much more cynical than I am. And he says that the American people love to be lied to. We'll agree to disagree on that, and we'll still enjoy a nice adult beverage over it as we do. Let me tell you something. For the last 3 years, 4 years, the American people have been lied to about January 6th. And when we learn the truth and we see things, and when we're told, that it's worse than 9/11 and it's worse than this and it's worse than that, and then people start thinking logically about it. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. If it was an insurrection, if it was an attempt to overthrow the government, then why didn't anybody bring a gun? And when you start asking yourself that question, you start to realize, oh yeah, okay. It was something else. It wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't an attempt to overthrow the government. It may have been something bad, but it wasn't what Liz Cheney and Nancy Pelosi and Jake Tapper's been telling me that it was. And when you start recognizing that, and you find out that they go overboard to lie to you, to try to sell you something that obviously on the face of it isn't true, then maybe, just maybe, this is a lot worse. The lies are a lot worse than the reality of what happened on January 6th. And that's why immediately people start saying, yeah, screw it. Of course, Trump is fine. Trump didn't have anything to do with it. And that's why these numbers shifted. By the way, those numbers, December of 2023, shifted even more by the time we got to Election Day, I'm sure, because the American people hate being lied to. And we were lied to horribly by these people.
Fewer folks thought he was greatly responsible for what happened on January 6th. But it's not just that. It's that people simply put didn't care as much about the attack on the Capitol. Look at this. January 6th is your biggest memory of Trump's first term in office. By the time of 2024, look at this. It was just 5%. just 5% of Americans. And among Republicans, it was just 2%. So the bottom line is fewer Americans faulted Donald Trump or thought he was greatly responsible for the January 6th attack. And more than that, as it went into the rearview mirror, far fewer folks thought that it was their number one memory.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. That is the bottom line. And what that graph tells you right there, look at that. 5% overall in America would agree that January 6th is the biggest memory of Trump's term. And what that really means is, that CNN lost. CNN lost. Nobody cares what CNN says. Nobody believed what CNN says. We still don't. And yet they still devoted their entire day yesterday to lament it, to scream at you, to wring their hands about you, to cry about you, to shout into their cameras at you. Why don't you believe us? Why don't you agree with us? Why don't you care about January 6th the same way we do? And boy, it was great television. It really was. Too bad nobody was watching. All right. Hang on. I got a couple of tabs to set up here. New breaking information since we started.
It's worth of it.
All right. I think we're set here. Kevin McMahon. Who's Kevin McCarthy? Oh, I know who Kevin McCarthy is. All right. You ready? Okay. Donald Trump is engaged in a press conference at Mar-a-Lago, and we want to share a little bit of newsworthy stuff that he's just said, most specifically about, well, Greenland and the Panama Canal. Here's Donald Trump just moments ago.
Can you put that one up, Larry? Hey, Larry, can you put that on screen?
Oh, I'm sorry, dude. Hang on. I got the wrong one up. Here we go. Let's try that again.
To Greenland and the Panama Canal, so forth. Can you assure the world that as you try to get control of these areas, you are not going to use military or economic coercion?
No.
And can you tell us a little bit about what your plan is? Are you going to negotiate a new treaty? Are you going to ask the Canadians to hold a vote? What is the strategy?
Yeah, I can't assure you. You're talking about Panama and Greenland. No, I can't assure you on either of those two. But I can say this. We need them for economic security. The Panama Canal was built for our military. I'm not going to commit to that now. It might be that
Greenland.
All right. I don't know if you could hear the reporter, but can you assure us that you won't utilize military or economic intervention with regards to Greenland and the Panama Canal? And he said, no, I won't assure you of that. It may be necessary, most specifically about Panama Canal. I don't think there's going to be any military intervention for Greenland. I think that's going to be an economic deal. And we'll get to the Greenland thing in a moment because it's a major story today. But on the Panama Canal, of course, I mean, China is there right now. Panama Canal is a military necessity for our Navy. It was necessary in World War II. It's necessary now. And if for some reason we can have control of the canal when we need it for our military, of course we're going to intervene. Also newsworthy, for some reason, the conversation of the Gulf of Mexico came up. And check this out.
it's ours. We're going to be changing sort of the opposite of Biden, where he's closing everything up, essentially getting rid of $50 to $60 trillion worth of assets. We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's appropriate. It's appropriate. And Mexico has to stop allowing millions of people to pour into our country. They can stop them. And we're going to put very serious tariffs on Mexico and
Canada. So there you go. We are, can we do that? Well, you said it's ours. I guess it is our territory. I mean, it's bordered by, there's part of the Gulf of Mexico borders Mexico, but most of the Gulf of Mexico borders Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida. And so we are now, this is like changing French fries to freedom fries. We are now changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. And I'm curious whether you agree with that. Are you down with that? Let us know in the comments if you think this is a good idea. It's gonna be, even if we try to do this, And I don't know, is this like an official proclamation? Does this require legislation? Or is it just going to be like a vernacular change? It's like as soon as we start calling, it's like when you, what did Zimbabwe used to be called something else when it was a British colony? But I think they officially changed their name, right? I mean, how do you change the name of a body of water? Is it just consensus? People just decide? I think we should change the name of the Ohio River. Because let's face it, nobody really likes Ohio. We should call it the Michigan River. It should go to whoever wins the Michigan-Ohio State game. They can just change the name of the river depending on who wins. That would be a beautiful thing. Did you know that the original Michigan-Ohio State football game is a carryover of a war between Michigan and Ohio over the city of Toledo? I know. Who cares about Toledo? Michigan won that war, by the way. That's why Toledo was part of Ohio. Thank you very much. Anyway, that's the latest news from the press conference with Donald Trump. Before this press conference, his son, Donald Trump Jr., landed Trump Force One, where? In Greenland. I know you expected it to be a little more green. Is it true that the Vikings actually called Greenland, Greenland, and Iceland, Iceland, because they were trying to fool people into thinking that the big chunk of ice was actually green, and that Iceland, which is actually green quite a bit of the time because it's more rainy than snowy there, similar to Ireland, that Iceland was actually greener than it is. Is that true that happened? I'm not sure, but that's what I was told when I was a kid. Anyway, there's Trump Force One with Donald Trump Jr. on board, landing at Greenland this morning. And in fact, he tweeted out or posted on X, the Everything app, a video from the cockpit. That would be a bobblehead of Donald Trump dressed in leather with a firearm and sunglasses. I might need to get one of those. And this is the approach from Trump Force One. Ever wondered what it looks like to be in the cockpit of Trump Force One, landing on a giant chunk of ice in the middle of the ocean? Look at it. It's beautiful, though, isn't it? I can't wait to vacation in the new American territory of Greenland during the summertime. They ain't going anywhere near there in January. What the hell were they thinking? But look how beautiful it is. It really is pristinely gorgeous, enriched with minerals, and strategically located to make it incredibly important as an asset for our economic needs and trade and for our military. And you got to love that. Here was Donald Trump Jr. arriving at the airport. All of this caught on video and posted on social media because Charlie Kirk, our pal Charlie Kirk from Turning Point, our colleague here at Salem Media, he's a radio host at Salem Radio Network. Charlie Kirk was on board and in tow for this junket to Greenland as Donald Trump Jr. arrived. And look at the assembled media. I mean, it's a big deal there at the airport. You know, I feel like this program that you're watching right now was one of the few that actually took this Greenland thing pretty seriously. I mean, we have fun with it. We think it's funny. We think it's cool. We think it's very Trumpian. But we laid out for you exactly the strategic, military, and economic interests that we have with Greenland. And it makes a lot of sense. And I saw earlier today, Sean Spicer, who was formerly part of the first Trump administration. He's a friend of this program. He's appeared on the show before, and I appear on. In fact, I'm appearing on Sean Spicer's show Thursday morning. Actually, he's got a great show on YouTube and Rumble, excuse me, and all the same platforms we're on right now. Sean Spicer said that apparently a part of the Trump State Department back in the first administration revealed to him recently that they were closer than anybody thinks in actually securing the deal for Greenland to become an American protectorate. There's a lot of geopolitics going on in this issue on the ground in Greenland, as they are part of the Danish kingdom, right? You talk about colonialism. The Kingdom of Denmark owns Greenland, but they have their own regional sort of government there with their own prime minister. But there's just so many decisions that they can make on their own. They are still part of the the Kingdom of Denmark. And the people on the ground there don't like it, and they don't want to be part of Denmark anymore. Now, whether they want to be American or not, that's to be determined. But Donald Trump Jr. going there and making this diplomatic effort to try to maybe win hearts and minds in Greenland, I mean, it can't hurt. In fact, here he is showing up there at a restaurant with Greenlanders who seem pretty excited to see him. They're all wearing MAGA hats. Check it out. Oh, excuse me. This is actually Trump calling in on his phone, doing a FaceTime thing there. Can we hear him, though? I'm having trouble hearing it, but I'll shut up so maybe you can hear what Trump has to say to the people assembled there.
And I think it'd be great to go up there with his two very talented friends and the other group, a lot of other people. So I just want to say that it's a very special place. It needs security for itself, but it also needs security very much for the world. The location really, you see the people and the ships sailing around, and they're not the right ships, and they're not the ships you want to know about. So we need security, and our country needs it, and the whole world needs it.
Yes.
You're so strategically located.
Yeah.
So it's really imperative.
You are right.
You guys like that, right?
Yeah, we're learning a lot. It's been great. Actually, incredibly beautiful place. The people are incredible. The welcome was spectacular. It's pretty amazing.
Well, that's great. Well, you go have a good time, everybody, and we're going to treat you well. You know that. And just take care of yourselves. Thank you all very much.
See you soon.
Be good.
Thank you.
All right, there's Trump 4547 calling in to talk to the people of Greenland at this little assembly. I do love that they're all wearing MAGA hats. They should have gotten green ones, though, right? That would have been a good move. You heard him saying reiterating that Greenland is an important economic and strategic asset for our national security and for our economic security. And he also said that it's a great place for hunting, and Don Jr. is there. Maybe he's going to get some hunting in while he's there. I'm not sure. Understand something. And again, we sort of laid this out. You can check some of our video clips here on the channel where you're watching, because we laid out the strategic importance of this. You know, the passage from the Bering Straits and Anchorage and Juneau and the various ports that we've got in Alaska. If you go north of Canada and on this side of the Arctic Circle, over around to Greenland, that's a very good passage, actually, straight to Europe and to America's eastern seaboard. Right now, if you needed to make that passage, you'd have to go all the way up and around the Arctic Circle over north of Russia. Not a safer route at all. And by the way, Russia and China both have their designs on that area up there. They have a fleet of ice-breaking ships that break through the ice to make sure that they've got passage, not just for commerce and for cargo ships and tankers, but also for their military, for their aircraft carriers, for their destroyers, and for all of their naval ships. We need that too. It's critically important, not just for trade routes, but also for our military. And we can't have China over in Greenland sort of occupying that and being right in our back door, right? Charlie Kirk, as I mentioned, is there, and he was feeling the love from the Greenlanders.
Okay, we are here in Greenland with Don Jr. Everyone wants to be on TikTok. What do you guys think of America? Great. Love America, and you love Trump? Yes, of course. The youth of Greenland, Don.
We're hearing a lot of it, guys. We're hearing a lot of it.
And you guys all watch TikTok, right?
Of course.
I'll follow you. Oh, thank you. Live from Greenland.
All right, live from Greenland. They love Trump and they love America and they want to be a part of America. Elon Musk tweeted this out today after Donald Trump put out these pictures of himself landing in Greenland, saying how beautiful it is. Elon Musk said, if the people of Greenland want to be a part of America, which I hope they do, they would be most welcome. By the way, who knew that the Greenland flag looks like a Pokemon ball, right? What is that all about? I like that. You got to catch them all. That's the bottom line. It's what the people of Greenland want, right? What do the people of Greenland want? If the people of Greenland want to be a part of America, then great. We'll welcome them. It'll be a wonderful thing. And that sort of gives us the biggest news of the day. Not just Trump at his press conference talking about how he can't guarantee that we won't use some sort of economic or military intervention to ensure that Greenland and Panama, that's a big story, it is. And not Donald Trump Jr. going to Greenland and all of the scenes that we saw there. That's news. It really is. The biggest news actually related to Greenland comes from the Prime Minister of Denmark. The Prime Minister of Denmark said, as Donald Trump Jr. was landing in Greenland, said, Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. It's not for sale. Okay. Well, no one's trying to buy it, ma'am. I'm guessing that's a woman. Mette Frederiksen. It's not about purchasing it. It's about the people of Greenland. I mean, I guess theoretically, if the king of Denmark wants to name a price, theoretically, the territory of Greenland could be sold. The prime minister is saying that it's not for sale. But you know what? I mean, we bought Alaska from Russia back in the day. So, there could be a price tag. But you know what? We agree with you. It's not for sale. There shouldn't be a cash transaction here. Let's let the people of Greenland decide, just as the prime minister said. See, Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders is a great slogan that America should embrace. We agree. Greenland belongs to the Greenlanders. This is a decision for the Greenlanders to make, because guess what? The Greenlanders do not want to be a part of the Danish kingdom anymore. Let them decide. No money, no cash transaction, no purchase. Let's just let the people of Greenland decide who they'd rather be a part of, if they want to be a part of anybody. I mean, I doubt they want full and complete and total independence, because that would require them to, spend money on a military to protect themselves and a whole lot of infrastructure that they would have to pay for. A better solution, I would think, was that they become a protectorate or a territory of the United States, just like Puerto Rico or the Virgin Islands or Guam. You see, Guam is a really good analogous example of what Greenland could be. Guam is critically important to America strategically and militarily and economically because of where it is, the proximity is on the globe. Guam is an important place for us to be able to station our military there in terms of making sure that commerce and the economy continues to flow free from Asia. It keeps China in check or other countries in check that might want to blockade or disrupt the free flow of commerce coming from Asia across the Pacific to the to our hemisphere and to the United States and North America. But also militarily, if anything happens in Asia, well, we have assets there. We have the Navy in Guam. We have Marines in Guam. We have a whole lot of ability to be able to get to Guam, station, and actually be able to disrupt things or do things that we need to do to look out for our interests militarily and the interests of our allies. Now look at the Atlantic. Look at the East. That's exactly what Greenland is. And this could work out perfectly for everybody, as we've been telling you since the first day Donald Trump mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Well, not the first day. He mentioned this back in his first term. But this is critically important. And the fact that the prime minister of Denmark said, hey, this is up to the Greenlanders to decide. Great, because that's news to the people of Greenland, since they've been under the thumb of the Danish government for so long. There is a move for independence in Greenland right now. They want the vote. They want to be able to decide. And I think that the Trump actions here are moving that conversation forward. The fact that the prime minister says it's all about what Greenlanders want, good. Then let's authorize the vote and let's move forward. And whatever Greenlanders decide should be what the government and the monarch of Denmark respects. And we're all for that, because I think they're going to decide to look to the West and not back to Europe. All right, that's it for today. Wow, that was a lot of content, but we wanted to get all that up there. Hey, Susan Hellett, thank you. Wait, Susan Shellett, €22. Woo, thank you for that. We love you right back, Susan. Thanks for that super chat. Daily dose of sanity and gleeful joy. Well, I wonder where you are in Europe that you would throw us some euros, but we love you right back. We love doing what we're doing. Thank you so much for that. Hopefully, we'll be able to visit you soon, but we'll stop in Greenland on the way. Angela, thank you for the $5 super chat. Even if President Trump pardons everyone for January 6th, at least he won't be pardoning terrorist enemies of the USA. 13 days can't come fast enough. We are praying, Angela, and it's a great point. What about if he pardons? What if he pardons? Look at who Biden has just pardoned and commuted the sentences of. Rapists and mass murderers, people who were on death row and supposed to get capital punishment. And Biden just let him off the hook. Anything that Trump does for anybody involved with January 6th, I think even the most violent people on January 6th would probably pay plenty of a price right now based on the hell that they've been through. It's a great point, Angela. Thank you for that. All right. Anything else? We got to come up. Are we happy with the name of Gulf of what did everyone say, Kevin? What's the consensus on Gulf of Mexico and Gulf of America?
People are thrilled.
Yeah, they like it. Gulf of America. All right. I'm on board. I just don't know what the mechanics of this are, but I'm on board. All right. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. That was a fun show. We'll see you tomorrow. In the meantime, my name's Larry O'Connor, and you can call me Larry.